They raised their glasses and toasted to weddings worth remembering, right after mocking mine like it was a joke. That was the moment I knew. My own family didn't believe my wedding was good enough to show up for. Hi, I'm Lauren. And when I chose to get married in my backyard with just 25 people, no fancy stage or chandeliers, I didn't expect applause, but I also didn't expect silence. What came next? A viral video, thousands of strangers crying, and a text from the woman who refused to come. Why did my mom regret not being there? What exactly did she finally see? Before we dive into the story, if you're enjoying these meaningful stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more. Now let's start the story together. Mom didn't raise her voice. She didn't even blink. She just set down her wine glass, looked at me, and said, "A backyard?" The room got quiet the way it does when someone says something just loud enough to cut through jazz and silverware. I felt my face warm, though I hadn't done anything wrong. "Yes," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Just 25 people. Ethan and I want something simple, intimate." Mom tilted her head like I'd told her we were getting married in a parking lot. "Well," she said slowly, "I suppose everyone has their own definition of wedding." Kat chimed in before I could respond. "You're hiring someone for the food, right? Please don't make people bring crock pots." A few chuckles rippled around the table. Ethan sat beside me, quiet as always, his fingers gently brushing mine beneath the tablecloth. That small touch was the only thing tethering me in place. Spring was settling in across Eugene. The windows behind Mom's long oak table showed hints of budding green, but all I could see was her narrowed expression, like she'd been handed an invitation to a potluck in a barn. I looked around at the faces, my aunt with her wine-stained teeth, my cousin already checking her phone, Kat twirling her engagement ring like she'd just remembered she was still the standard. I thought back to her wedding 6 years earlier, when Mom told me, "You'll get your turn." Back then, I thought she meant a moment like Kat's, a cathedral, a gown with lace that shimmered like frost, a father-daughter dance that ended in applause. But now, my turn meant lights strung between trees, mason jars of lemonade, a dress Maya was sewing with her own 2 hands. It wasn't a spectacle. It was home. "I think it sounds beautiful," Ethan said quietly. "It wasn't for the room, it was for me." He didn't say it loudly, he didn't have to. Mom reached for her glass again and lifted it with the grace of someone taking a final shot in a debate. "To weddings worth remembering," she said, smiling at no one in particular. Laughter followed, polite, sharp, unkind. I didn't speak again for the rest of dinner. On the way home, the sky outside the windshield stretched wide and soft, pink streaked with the last light of day. Ethan drove one-handed, the other resting on my knee. We didn't talk for a while. I stared out the window, past yards where dogs barked and porch lights flickered on like fireflies. Then I said, without looking at him, "Let's just not invite them." He didn't ask who. He already knew, and that tiny sapphire ring on my hand, no one had noticed it that night, but I did. There's only one photo of me at Kat's wedding. I'm blurred, hunched over a tray of champagne flutes, half stepping out of frame. Someone tagged me in it years ago. The caption said, "Staff." I never corrected them. That day in 2016 still clings to me in odd, quiet ways. I can still hear the click of Kat's heels echoing down the hall of that luxury venue in Portland, each step delicate, but determined. I remember the smell of gardenias and the gleam of rented crystal, everything curated to gleam just so. I'd gotten there early, not as a guest, but to help. That's what Mom said. "Just be useful, honey." So I wore a black dress that passed for semi-formal, pulled my hair back, and started checking in with vendors. The quartet needed water. The caterer was short one server. The florist's assistant couldn't find the extra ribbon. I remember my shoes most, cheap clearance flats I'd bought last minute. By the first toast, they'd already rubbed blisters into both heels. I limped down the catering corridor, balancing a clipboard and a walkie-talkie, adjusting the buffet layout like it mattered more than breathing. Somewhere around sunset, a guest asked me where the restroom was. When I smiled and said I wasn't staff, just the bride's sister, they blinked like they hadn't even seen me standing there. I caught Mom's eye across the room, silently asking for backup. She just looked away. Later, in the bridal suite, I tried to step in for a group photo. I wasn't trying to steal attention. I just wanted proof I was there. But Mom stepped forward, gently adjusting Kat's veil with trembling fingers. "Not now," she whispered. "Let her shine. You'll get your turn." I nodded. Then I backed out of the frame. The laughter from inside followed me all the way down the hall. When the bouquet toss happened, I wasn't there. I was behind the building, scraping leftover hors d'oeuvres into compost bins, trying not to cry over crab cakes. I'd lost track of the time, or maybe I just didn't think anyone would notice. Later that night, I slipped into the reception tent for a glass of water. The lights had dimmed to that golden level that made everything feel expensive. I stood there for a minute just watching. Kat in her custom beaded gown, Mom laughing at something the DJ said, everyone dressed in glimmering blue and silver. No one saw me. Back in the present, I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand. I pulled up that one blurry photo. My bent back, the shine of the tray, my face turned away. Then, without thinking, I deleted it. My thumb lingered over the screen for a second longer than it needed to. Now, the background on my phone is a sketch I drew by hand. My wedding. Paper lanterns strung from tree to tree. Wildflowers tucked along a wooden path. No stage, no spotlights. Just space enough for joy. We didn't hire a planner. We borrowed chairs from neighbors and built a table out of old fence boards Ethan had stashed behind the garage. He called it homegrown magic, smiling as he hammered the legs into place with sleeves rolled up and sawdust clinging to his neck. The garden was still a bit wild. The dry Oregon fall had coaxed golden leaves onto every path, and the flower beds were a mix of weeds and color that we never quite tamed. But it looked alive, honest. I spent a whole Saturday handwriting invitations on pressed seed paper, just 25 of them. I used a fountain pen Maya gifted me on my birthday. The ink bled a little in the corners, but I didn't mind. Each one felt like it belonged to the earth more than a printer ever could. Inside, Maya worked on my dress. She sat cross-legged on our rug, pinning the side seams while humming to herself. "Deep pockets," I told her. "I want to carry my own vows." She nodded without looking up. Practical and powerful. Ethan was outside stringing solar lights between the apple trees. We didn't have lanterns yet, just lengths of wire and little bulbs he ordered online. He tested each one, replacing the ones that flickered or dimmed too fast. Sadie was nearby holding her small handheld camera but saying nothing. She liked to film unnoticed, catching details most people missed. Dirt under fingernails, hands pausing over ribbon, the silence between a laugh and a reply. At one point, I stepped outside with lemonade for everyone. Ethan was brushing sawdust from his pants, and Maya was holding up the gown against the sunlight like stained glass. Sadie filmed quietly from the porch. Later that evening, when the sun dipped low and the clouds gathered in a gentle hush, we tested the lights. They flickered on slowly, warming the garden in soft pulses of amber. Ethan stood beside me, looking up, then said in his quiet way, "This looks like starlight that listens." I didn't answer right away. My throat felt too full. Just as we were starting to pack up for the night, our neighbor Mrs. Ellery wandered over with a folding chair under one arm. "Spare from the garage," she said. "Yours if you need it." She looked around the backyard, took in the lights and half-finished arch of driftwood. Then she smiled and said, "Looks like something worth remembering." It was the first time in weeks I smiled without effort. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, phone buzzing beside me with another message from Mom. Still time to book a real venue, just saying. I didn't reply. I just set the phone face down. On my nightstand sat a stack of name cards, each cut from the same seed paper as the invitations. Ethan called them our grow your own blessing, and I believed him. We didn't have a bridal suite. I got ready in our small bathroom, standing in front of a cracked mirror with water stains along the bottom edge. Maya stood behind me, gently weaving fresh gardenias into my hair. The room smelled like lavender soap and steam from the kettle we forgot to turn off. "You look like yourself," she said quietly, adjusting one of the flowers. I caught her reflection in the mirror. She looked calm, steady. That helped. The dress she made hung just right. Soft cream, no lace, no train, but deep pockets where I tucked my handwritten vows, folded neatly beside a smooth stone Ethan found during one of our walks. I wanted to carry something natural, something real. Outside, the sky was overcast, the kind of soft gray that makes every color glow. Our backyard had never looked more alive. Rows of mismatched chairs, borrowed, gifted, salvaged, lined the garden path. Scraps of ribbon fluttered gently at their backs. Solar lights blinked on as clouds shifted overhead. There was no music, no prelude, just the wind rustling through rosemary and the faint hum of birds finding somewhere to land. When guests began arriving, they didn't chatter or pose for selfies. They stepped carefully onto the gravel path like entering something sacred. Ethan stood at the end of that path, beneath the driftwood arch we'd built together. He wore his navy suit and that crooked smile that always made me feel like I'd just told a secret worth keeping. As I walked toward him, barefoot on the stone, I felt the weight of the day settle into my skin. Not pressure, presence, not nerves, clarity. We didn't have an officiant. We didn't recite from tradition. We just stood there, hands shaking slightly, and spoke to each other. "I never knew ordinary could feel sacred," I told him. Ethan took a breath, and for a second I thought he might forget his words entirely. Then he said, voice thick, "You brought me home." That was enough. When the last words were said and the last breath of silence settled between us, someone in the back clapped, then another, then all of them. Not polite applause, true open joy. Dinner came in waves. Bowls passed hand to hand, fig cake that Maya had baked that morning, rosemary roasted vegetables still warm from the oven. Plates clinked, glasses refilled. Someone started humming along to a Van Morrison song, playing low from a borrowed speaker. No servers, no place cards. Just people leaning into each other, laughing, eating under the soft light of 100 tiny bulbs. When the sun disappeared completely, the garden turned golden. The lights Ethan strung weeks ago blinked on one by one, glowing like fireflies who'd decided to stay a while. Maya found me in the middle of it all and whispered, "This doesn't look like a wedding. It looks like a memory." I didn't answer. I just smiled and took her hand. Ethan pulled me toward the flagstone path and we danced without music for a minute. Just us. Just the sounds of our friends, our chosen family, and the soft rhythm of the earth below our feet. I could feel Sadie filming quietly from the shadows, not for show, not for Instagram, but because she understood. Some moments deserve to be remembered even if no one posed for them. We danced barefoot until my feet hurt, until my hair came loose, until someone handed me a second slice of cake I didn't ask for. Later that night, after everyone had gone and the last dish had been stacked beside the sink, I sat on our couch, Ethan beside me, both of us still in our wedding clothes. I uploaded a short clip Sadie had sent me earlier. No caption, no filter. Just 60 seconds of Ethan's hands fixing a loose light, my dress catching sunlight, and us dancing beneath those paper lanterns. I titled it, October 8th, Home. Love. Then I put my phone face down on the coffee table and let the silence hold us. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to explain a single thing. By breakfast, the video had 20,000 views. Ethan poured coffee like it was any other day, but I could see the raised eyebrow when he glanced at my phone. Notifications kept rolling in, likes, shares, comments I couldn't read fast enough. By lunch, strangers were sending me messages like, "This made me cry," and "Is this real?" Someone wrote, "I don't know you, but this feels like a prayer. I sat curled on the couch, still in pajama pants, watching the view count jump like popcorn in a hot pan. Ethan folded laundry nearby, humming under his breath. When I read one of the comments aloud, "Backyard weddings should be the new standard," he just smiled and kept folding. "I didn't post it for this," I said, more to myself than to him. "I know," he said, placing a warm towel in my lap. "But sometimes truth has better timing than we do." Sadie had said something similar weeks earlier. Sometimes petty is just finally telling your truth out loud. I hadn't meant to go viral. I just wanted to remember what it felt like, to be fully there, to be fully me. But then, around 2:30, Kat's name popped up on my voicemail. I stared at the screen for a long moment before hitting play. Her voice was thin, a little too cheerful. "Hey, so I just saw that wedding video. Wow, it looked really beautiful. You should have told us it was going to be like that." There was a pause, the kind where you know someone's deciding whether to say what they mean or what sounds better. "Anyway, I guess we'll talk soon?" I didn't call her back. A few hours later, a text from Mom. "Is this the wedding I wasn't invited to?" I stared at the message, lips pressed tight. My thumbs hovered, then stilled. Before I could reply, another text came. "You made us look bad, Lauren. People are asking why we weren't there. You could have warned us." "Warn them?" Ethan glanced over. I must have made a sound, something small and sharp. He sat beside me, knees touching mine. "You don't owe them an explanation," he said gently. I nodded. And yet, that evening, I opened the longer version of the wedding film, 20 minutes, raw and unedited. Sadie had sent it as a private link, just for us. I watched Ethan tie my sandal with trembling hands, saw myself blinking back tears as I read the vows, heard the sound of glasses clinking and someone laughing off-screen during dinner. Then I thought of something Ethan had said that morning. Truth has better timing than we do. So I tapped out a single message to Mom. "If you want to understand what happened, come to Sadie's studio." Friday, 3 p.m. I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I didn't offer details. 2 hours later, her reply came. Fine, no punctuation, no apology. But she was coming. Ethan didn't say anything at first. He just slid a blanket across my lap and sat beside me, shoulder to shoulder. We sat in silence, watching the firelight flicker against the living room walls. Then he said, "Not for her, for you." And I knew he was right. Sometimes, grace isn't about giving people what they deserve. It's about offering the one thing they never thought to ask for, a chance to truly see you. She arrived 10 minutes late, wearing a string of pearls and that tight practice smile she uses for fundraisers and holiday parties. I didn't stand to greet her. I just pointed toward the second chair in Sadie's studio and said, "It's already queued up." Sadie had set the space quietly. A small screen, 2 folding chairs, a potted fern tucked into the corner like it was listening. The air felt still, almost heavy, like it knew something was about to shift. Mom sat down, smoothing her skirt with slow fingers. She didn't ask how I was, didn't comment on the room or the film. She simply crossed one leg over the other and said, "Whenever you're ready." I pressed play. The video opened without music. Just the real sounds. Ethan exhaling nervously, the crunch of gravel under my bare feet, the wind threading through rosemary stalks. My voice trembled slightly as I read my vows. His cracked when he answered. No edits, no angles meant to flatter, just truth. She didn't speak, but I saw the small tells, her fingers tapping her elbow, the slight movement of her jaw when the camera lingered on the mismatched chairs. At minute 12, she leaned forward. At minute 17, her hand loosened in her lap. The final shot came. Ethan and I spinning slowly under the string lights, paper lanterns glowing like patient stars. The screen faded to black. I didn't say a word, just paused the video on that last image. Empty chairs, candle stubs, soft shadows. She took a breath. Not a dramatic one, but long. Measured. Then she said, "It looked expensive." I turned to her steady. "Would it have mattered?" She opened her mouth and then shut it again. The room held still. "I didn't know it would be beautiful," she said finally, quieter than I expected. I let the silence stretch before I replied. "That's the point. You didn't care to find out." She looked away. Her fingers reached for her handbag, then stopped. I didn't move. I didn't offer comfort. Not this time. When she finally met my eyes, her voice was sharp around the edges. "You made us look like we didn't care." I tilted my head slightly. "Did you?" Her mouth twitched, barely. No answer came. I stood, walked to the door, and opened it. "Thanks for coming." She lingered for a second, half rising, then sat back down briefly. "I didn't know," she said again, but this time it sounded like something softer. Not regret, exactly. Not apology, but something close. "That's okay," I replied. I did. She didn't hug me. I didn't expect her to. The door clicked softly behind her, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. Not bitter. Not triumphant. Just clear. Weeks passed. One morning, I found a small box on our porch. No return address, just my name in careful cursive I hadn't seen in years. Inside was a photo, Kat's wedding. I almost didn't recognize myself at first. I was in the background, blurred again, holding a tray of champagne. Head turned slightly, not smiling. Just there, on the back, written in that same careful hand. "I looked right past you that day. I see you now." No signature. But I didn't need one. I didn't call, didn't reply. I just slid the photo into the back sleeve of our wedding album, behind the picture of Ethan spinning me under the lanterns. That's the one I'll show people. If they ever ask about our wedding, I'll say we did it our way, that we planted wildflowers where people expected roses, that we fed our guests from our hands, not a caterer's checklist, that we danced on gravel and laughed under paper moons, and that we invited everyone who mattered, even the ones who didn't show up. Because in the end, a wedding isn't made by who attends. It's made by who stays. I didn't need an apology. I didn't even need her to stay. What I needed was to be seen for who I truly was. And that finally happened, even if it came too late to change anything else. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive dressed as forgiveness. Sometimes it just shows up in silence and lets the truth breathe. In families, we often mistake tradition for connection, forgetting that real connection takes effort, not elegance. And maybe if we slowed down and really listened to one another, we'd realize how much beauty we've been walking past. If this story touched something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share what you learned, because sometimes a simple story can open a deeper conversation.